On our journey to Easter, as we have um, looked at Elijah and Elisha and their life through First and Second Kings, we've seen them encounter many different people. This past Sunday, we saw in Second Kings chapter 5 the story of Naaman and his healing in the River Jordan. Part of the details of that story that we didn't really talk about on Sunday, we saw Naaman early in the chapter. He brings a lot of money with him when he comes to Israel. He believes, this is clear, that he believes that he's going to have to buy some sort of healing, whether it's access to the prophet or a bribe to the king, whatever it is. He believes that healing from this God is going to cost him money. In Later in the chapter, after he's healed, he offers Elisha that money, and Elisha turns it down, and he says, basically, I work for the living God, not for your money." After that, Elisha's servant Gehazi, he doesn't sit well with him that this enemy general gets healed and it costs him nothing. And so he uh, pursues Naaman and lies to him that he doesn't try to take everything that Naaman has brought, but he says there, Elisha's changed his mind. He uses Elisha's name. He's changed his mind, and there's a few prophets that are in need, and he wants some clothing and some money for them. Immediately when Gehazi gets back, Elisha exposes him, calls him out, and Gehazi ends up with the leprosy that Naaman was healed with. This kind of contrast and judgment that falls on him. Now, there's a lot of lessons that we could probably take from this. There's, of course, lessons about greed and lessons about uh, deception and consequences for our actions. So we often ask why Gehazi does what he does, but here's the question that I think that we should ask. Why does Elisha do what Elisha does? Why does he refuse payment for this miracle? And why is it such an offense that Gehazi takes the payment? I I think it comes as we look at the text, the expectation of Aram, the nation, the king of Aram, and Naaman, is that for Yahweh to do something for them, they're going to have to pay for it. And things like healing or some miracle are bought and paid for. And Elisha wants them to see a different lesson, that God doesn't act because we give him something. God doesn't act because we buy something for him, from him. God has mercy and uses his power not because of anything that we do, not because of anything that we are, but because of who he is. It's the same lesson, really, that we talked about when uh, some people weren't okay with people like Naaman coming to God or being a part of God's people. So we walk away from this and understand it's a lesson in God's mercy. You cannot, and this is appropriate headed to Easter, when pastors or churches encourage people to give or to buy. If you give more, then God's going to bless you more. If you pay this, then you're going to buy a healing or pay uh, for anything. That's not how it works. It's not how God works. God does encourage us to be generous, but it's not a quid pro quo. You do this, and God gives you that. So what God has for us cannot be bought. What God wants to do in your life cannot be bought. He doesn't give it to you because you give him a certain amount or because you do certain things. Again, as we expressed in the message, we are not worthy because of who we are. We are not worthy because of what we accomplished. We are not unworthy because of what we haven't accomplished. God and what God has for us, His grace, His mercy, His love, His power is not bought and sold. It is given freely. And so never come to God with your hands full of what is yours or what you've done or what you want to give. God doesn't need any of that to work in your life. And don't be the Gehazi ready to take it and sell what God has to give freely either. So as we journey to Easter, we remember that what Christ did for us cannot be bought, but instead, what he did for us on the cross has bought our freedom for us. We celebrate that. And as we approach Good Friday and Easter Sunday here in just a few weeks, remember everything that Jesus did for you is free so that you can be free in him.